Hi guys, a quick audio check. If you hear this, can you give me a thumbs up in the chat, please? Okay, hello everybody from all over the world, mostly UK at the moment, I think. Thank you very much for tuning into this online live talk about Tony's Chocolonely, about what we do, about how we do things, but mostly about why we even came to be. Let's do things like this. I need to mute my own computer. Let's do a quick presentation of about, I would say, 20 minutes. I'll put that one on soon, and then we can have all the time you want for me to answer all of your questions you might have about our company, about the current situation, about how we want to make impact, anything you want to ask me. And I can take all the time you want, but let's see whether we can do that in, say, in another 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So we'll be done in 40 or 50 minutes, or however long it takes to answer all of your questions. Great to have all of you here in this weird situation. Obviously, everybody working from home in various forms of lockdown in different countries. Strange situation, and feel free to ask me any question you might have afterwards. Also about this situation and how we're coping with it, and how our cooperatives and farmers in West Africa are coping with this. So ask any questions you might have during the talk. I'll answer all of them. I'll get them out of the chat on YouTube and answer all of your questions live that you have afterwards. Do me a favor. The other day I was giving an online talk for grade school kids, and they were just flooding the talk with hellos and high fives, and I couldn't find any serious questions amongst them. So let's see whether we can keep them clean, but feel free to answer any question you might have. So here we go, first for an online presentation. Hello, my name is Ynzo, and I'm the Choco Evangelist of a formerly small Dutch chocolate company called Tony's Chocolonely. And today I'd like to tell you the story about the bitter reality behind the sweet story of chocolate, which unfortunately still exists in the industry today. I'm going to tell you about Tony's Chocolonely, about what we do as a company, about how we do things as a company, but mostly why we even came to exist as a company. I'm going to take you through this story and tell you all about chocolate and the reality behind it. Chocolate, I often say, is the solution to everything. I mean, if you're having a crappy week, there's nothing better to fix a crappy week than ending the week with a big bar of chocolate. Or maybe you're having a great week, then there's nothing better to celebrate a great week than a big bar of chocolate. So let me tell you this story. The reality is that cocoa grows around the equator. There's a little bit of cocoa that comes from Asia. There's a bit of cocoa that comes from South America, where originally cocoa comes from. But the majority of cocoa nowadays is grown on millions of tiny farms in Western Africa. These are 1, 2, 3, maximum 4 hectare size family-run businesses. Millions of those. The other side of the value chain is billions of consumers like you and me who just want to be able to munch down on a bar of chocolate every single day in your life without feeling any sense of guilt. In the middle of the value chain, there's only a handful of companies that actually produce chocolate from cocoa. And it's in the interest of these companies that the price of cocoa remains low. In our opinion, that price is inhumanly low. Because how does that look? Of a bar of chocolate that's sold in the stores for, say, €2.80, not much more than 15 or 16 euro cents go to the farmer that grows that cocoa. So that's not much more than 5.5 or 6% of the retail price. And that leads to the typical cocoa farmer in Ivory Coast and his family members to live of about 72 euro cents, or about 79 cents of available income per person per day, which is way below the extreme poverty level for a country like Ivory Coast, let alone the living income level. And we think that value chain is very unequally divided. Now, how does that look? Two countries in Western Africa, Ghana and Ivory Coast, produce at least 60% of all cocoa in the whole wide world. And that is grown on about 2.5 million farms in Ghana and Ivory Coast alone. And on those farms, there's 2.3 million children that work there, of which 90% work under illegal circumstances. And that's not only illegal according to the International Labour Organization, but also illegal according to local law, and that's important to know. So that means that these kids work with heavy machinery, work with chemicals, walk around with big sharp machetes, or at the age of 6, 7 or 8, walk around with bags of cocoa beans that weigh 60 kilos per bag. And in the very worst case, at least 30,000 children are subject to something that we call modern slavery. So these are kids that work in forced circumstances and in very bad circumstances. And we think that is ridiculous. These are kids that sometimes are lured from neighboring countries like Burkina Faso under false pretenses like you're going to be able to send home some money, we're going to educate you to become a cocoa farmer. But these kids sometimes even disappear in that industry. Now these are statistics, but let me show you a little movie of a couple of these kids.
Je suis Kamsame Félix, j'ai 16 ans. J'ai travaillé dans une plantation de cacao de 1999 en 2003.
Je m'appelle Kamkoy Herman, j'ai 18 ans. J'ai travaillé à la plantation de cacao 1999 en 2003.
Je m'appelle Kam Touré, j'ai 18 ans. J'étais travaillé dans la plantation en 99.
Je n'étais pas payé. J'étais forcé de travailler.
J'étais forcé de travailler. Je n'avais pas la liberté pour quitter l'école.
On m'a pas payé, on m'a forcé de travailler.
Et puis on vous laisse jamais causer entre parents. Si on te voit causer avec ton parent, bon, on te tue ou bien on te mate très bien là et puis on te fait changer de compte.
C'est fini, madame?
Now, if you realize that in the middle of that value chain, there's only a handful of companies that, in our opinion, are responsible for the problem in the cocoa industry, you could also reason that that problem is easily solved, right? If it's only a handful of companies that need to change their ways. And in 2001, there were two American senators that came to the same realization. And Senator Harkin and Senator Engel set up the Harkin and Engel Protocol to eradicate the worst forms of child labor from the value chain of cocoa within 5 years' time. And the Harkin and Engel Protocol was signed by all of the big chocolate firms in the middle of that value chain that I just described. And then you think, you're there. But unfortunately, the Harkin and Engel Protocol was and is a so-called non-binding agreement. And it shows because now, 20 years down the line, none of the goals in the Harkin and Engel Protocol have been achieved. In 2005, there was a Dutch television show called Keuringsdienst van Waarde, which is more or less the equivalent of the 60 Minutes of Food or the Food CIA, so an investigative journalistic program looking at the reality behind some forms of food marketing. And the journalist Teun van de Keuken was shocked when he realized that in 5 years' time, almost at the end of the first term of the Harkin and Engel Protocol, nothing had changed in the cocoa industry. Even worse, nothing had been actually done towards change in the cocoa industry. But Teun had an issue because Teun is a television journalist and none of these big players wanted to speak to him on camera. So Teun came up with the smart move. Teun bought 10 different bars of different brands of which he was sure that somewhere in the value chain there had been forced child labor. And Teun put a camera on himself and he took a bite of each of those bars. And he called the international alarm number, saying, "I want to turn myself in as a chocolate criminal." Now it was quiet on the other end of the line. They don't get these phone calls every day. So Teun explained. Teun said, "According to international law, if you're aware of criminal activities in a value chain of a product that you buy, you make yourself complicit to those criminal activities. So by buying and consuming chocolate, of which I know that there's forced child labor in that value chain, I make myself complicit to that financing of modern slavery. And that is illegal, so you have to come and arrest me." Well, Teun wasn't being taken seriously, so Teun hired an expensive lawyer and had a court case set up against himself, which was a brilliant move, because if he would have sued one of these big players, he would not even get to a court case. And in this case, they could only stand by and watch what the verdict of the judge would be. Unfortunately, after a lengthy pre-trial, the judge said, "Mr. van der Keuken, morally you're completely right, but legally I can't prosecute you, because I cannot prove the causality, the direct relationship between the bars that were picked by Cam Herman from the movie, who you just saw, and the chocolate that you ate." So Teun didn't have the court sentence that he was looking for, and he didn't have the television footage that he was looking for. So Teun said, "You know what, I'll change that industry from within." And Teun launched his own little chocolate company, Tony's Chocolonely. Tony's, international name for Teun, and Chocolonely for his lonely battle in the chocolate industry. A small company, but with a huge mission. To not only make our own chocolate 100% slave-free, but to make all chocolate worldwide 100% slave-free. And Teun had 5,000 chocolate bars made, thinking he could run a business on a stock of 5,000 chocolate bars. Well, here's a little clip of the very first day that we launched.
Ja, goedemiddag.
Goedemiddag, is dit Alain de Laat?
Jawel,
Meneer de Laat, u spreekt met Teun van der Keuken uit Nederland.
jawel.
Weet u nog wie ik ben?
Ja, ik weet wie u bent.
Nou, ik heb een tijdje geleden bij u allemaal chocola gekocht, hè?
Ja, dat klopt.
Ja. En we zijn vanochtend begonnen met de verkoop.
Ja?
En u moet eens even raden hoeveel we er hebben verkocht.
Oh, 1000?
13.000.
13.000?
Ja.
Oei, dan hebt u een probleem, hè?
Ja, dan heb ik een probleem, ja.
Yes, we had a problem, but obviously it was a positive problem. Apparently, people were looking for something to indulge themselves while still being able to do something good for the world and society around them. Now, we're really proud of the fact that we can say that we became market leaders in the Netherlands in a very short time frame, outdoing all traditional competition. And for the people that are familiar with Tony's, it won't be a surprise that our best-selling chocolate bar, or the best-selling chocolate bar in the Netherlands, is the caramel sea salt chocolate bar, outselling all competition, and it sells more than twice the amount of the next best-selling chocolate bar, which fortunately is our milk chocolate bar. But even though we became market leaders in the Netherlands and are now available in Scandinavia, Finland, Germany, Belgium, France, the UK, and the US, and more exotic places in the world, and pretty soon in the whole galaxy, we're still really holding on to that culture of a small company. Because a wise woman, Anita Roddick, the founder of The Body Shop, who died way too young, already once said, "If you think something small can't make a difference, try sharing your room with a mosquito." And we're the mosquito in the room of the chocolate business, constantly buzzing in the back of their ears, sometimes stinging, and hopefully keeping them awake at night like a proper mosquito should be doing. Now, how do we think we can reach that humongous mission of 100% slave-free chocolate worldwide? The very first step is simply to create awareness. To create awareness amongst chocolate consumers about the bitter reality that still exists in the cocoa industry today. Because we are convinced that when consumers and retailers simply hand in hand ask more questions about what they put in their shopping baskets or what they put up on their shelves, that the producers of these goods will have to start feeling that pressure and will have to change their ways. We actively search for those consumers that we call our serious friends. So those are people that not just buy our chocolate because they like our chocolate, which is great in itself, not just buy our chocolate because they want to support our mission, but that actively spread that mission amongst family and friends. We call those people our serious friends, so our ambassadors. Now, where do we find our serious friends? Well, for example, in the heart of Amsterdam, we opened the Superstore, a tiny chocolate store where we sell chocolate bars, but where we also have a machine where you can make more than 22,000 different combinations of Tony's bars with your own packaging, your own wrappers and everything. And some people call this a very commercial enterprise, which is fine because we are commercial, but these people forget the beautiful historical fact that our store is literally situated 2 floors down from the place where for hundreds of years cocoa beans were traded. Because that store, that location was and is the first stock exchange in the world. Now that store wasn't crazy enough for us, so last year we decided we want to open our own factory. And we bought the place already at the outskirts of Amsterdam, and we want to have that factory not just to make chocolate, but to really be able to show the world where cocoa beans come from, how chocolate is made, and what problems exist in the cocoa industry. So for us, it's still about creating awareness. So we said we want to have 500,000 people come to our factory per year. Now, 500,000 people coming anywhere in the Netherlands means you're amongst the top 15 tourist attractions of the Netherlands. So we asked our most trusted advisors, how do we get so many people to a boring factory? And our most trusted advisors are our own kids. And they said, Dad, maybe if you have a roller coaster go through your factory, you're going to get those people to the factory. So we're actually building a roller coaster that goes through our factories and hopefully even through our office. That's all work in progress still. Hopefully we open it next year. This awareness we want to create to up the pressure on the governments of the US and the individual governments of the members of the European Union to make sure that organizations really abide by laws that have to do with respecting human rights in your value chain. And if they're not there, to put those laws in place and to make sure that people adhere to these human rights. The second step in our strategy is that we want to show the industry that chocolate can be made in a different way. In a more social way, in a more sustainable way, in our opinion, simply in a better way. And how? By following the recipe for slave-free cocoa or our 5 steps in our sourcing principles. Of which the most important one is to take responsibility for your full value chain. So that means full transparency in your value chain and traceability of where your resources come from. So we now work with more than 6,500 farmers in Ghana and Ivory Coast. And why Ghana and Ivory Coast? Because the problem of forced child labor simply is the biggest in those 2 countries. And we want to solve the problem where the problem exists instead of going around the problem. So we work with these farmers that are united in 7 cooperatives to have this long-term relationship with these farmers. And why is that so relevant? Because in that case, we can pay a higher price directly to those farmers in the beginning of the value chain. So on top of the farm gate price that is established by the governments of Ghana and Ivory Coast, we pay another 20% Fairtrade premium, and on top of that we pay about a 20 to 50% additional Tony's premium towards the living income reference price to make sure that these farmers actually earn that living income, which simply means that they can afford a roof over their head, they can feed their whole family, send their kids to school, which we find essential, and hopefully invest a little bit in a positive spiral upwards. So we help them to increase the productivity on their farms, we help them to increase the quality of their cocoa beans, we also help them to form a stronger stand towards the buyers in the middle of the value chain that I spoke to about. The last step in our strategy is that we want other companies to simply blatantly copy what we're doing, which means our business model, our value chain. Now we're really proud to say that last year we could say that Albert Heijn, the biggest retailer in the Netherlands, now sources their cocoa beans through the same 5 principles. And together with Albert Heijn and Barry Callebaut, who produces the chocolate for both of us, we started the Tony's Open Chain platform, where we actively invite other retailers and other chocolate producers to join the Tony's Open Chain platform to work through the same 5 sourcing principles to make sure that we all work towards 100% slave-free chocolate worldwide. Now, we could have become an NGO. We could have become an activist. We actively chose to become a commercial chocolate company, changing that system from within. And some people might call us a social enterprise, which is fine by me, because for us, financial success isn't the goal. For us, financial success, don't get me wrong, we're commercial as hell, but financial success is simply a means towards the goal. The goal is crystal clear, 100% slave-free chocolate worldwide. But I'm starting to oppose calling ourselves a social enterprise because we simply believe that normal, regular entrepreneurs simply need to make sure that when they are financially successful, they need to realize they have a moral obligation towards the world around them to do something good for that planet and the society around them. We always say we're crazy about chocolate or we're serious about people. Now we're pretty damn crazy about chocolate. I mean, 15 years ago in the Netherlands, you had 4 types of chocolate: white, milk, dark, and something with nuts sprinkled into it. We have about 25 to 30 recipes, rotating recipes, seasonal recipes, simply to keep enticing and satisfying the taste buds of our consumers. We're crazy about chocolate, and anytime you walk into our office, the first thing you see is Eva and Bas in our kitchen coming up with the craziest recipes. But we're serious about people. And in our list of serious about people, number 1, we put our own team, which might sound slightly narcissistic, but we strongly believe that we can only reach that humongous goal of 100% slave-free chocolate worldwide by having the most committed and engaged team you can imagine. So we work on a serious subject, we try to make that work as fun as possible. So in your contract when you work at Tony's, it specifically states that you can bring home as much chocolate as you can physically carry, each and every day. And to keep that slightly within boundaries, you get free running shoes every year, we do yoga together, we do boot camps together, we have the most delicious vegetarian lunches in the office, because on number 1, it's our own team. On number 2, obviously, those more than 6,500 farmers that we work with directly in Ghana and Ivory Coast alone. And before I sound like some kind of marketing guru, bear in mind that 6,500 farmers isn't 0.5% yet of the 2.5 million farms that I mentioned earlier on in my presentation. So unfortunately, we're still a drop in the ocean, but hopefully we're going to change that soon. Our number 3 is the consumers, the people that actually eat our bars. And number 4, the retailers, so the stores that sell our bars. And number 5, our suppliers, like Barry Callebaut. We often say we're not a chocolate maker, we're an impact maker through the way of chocolate. Callebaut makes our chocolate. Now, if you hear this story about how unequally divided the world of cocoa and chocolate has always been, isn't it surprising that chocolate bars for the last decades or maybe even centuries have always had this perfectly divided, very boring, almost Excel spreadsheet kind of shape? And very boring chocolate companies might even put their own brand name on each and every individual block in that bar, just to make sure that consumers might forget their brand name halfway through eating that bar. We thought that was a bit weird. So we made our bars unequally divided. And I can tell you, in the first few weeks, we had hell to pay. The phone was ringing constantly, the inbox was exploding. There was this epic complaint by a mother who sent us an email saying, "My kids used to live in perfect harmony. You guys come up with this unequally divided bar and this bickering every day." We tried to get in touch with each and every of these people that had a complaint to explain why we had made our bars unequally divided. Because our bars tell the story of the unequally divided chocolate industry in its purest form. Our bars actually become a discussion piece. If you open a bar of Tony's at the dinner table next to somebody who doesn't know this story, you're bound to have to tell this story, because that person next to you will ask you, why is that bar so unequally divided? And why is that relevant? Because we never paid a single cent to advertising or paid media. It's all been word of mouth so far. Not too many people know, though, that we managed to hide the map of Western Africa in our bars, showing the origin of our cocoa beans and the pride we have in working with these strong farmers in Ghana and Ivory Coast alone. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is how we believe a small company can make a dent in a rusted down industry, in our case, the chocolate industry. Because we're convinced that we can make our chocolate 100% slave-free. But that is not what we are about. It's about making chocolate 100% slave-free worldwide, together with the rest of the industry, together with consumers, together with governments, together with farmers, etc. Because together we can make chocolate 100% slave-free.
het is toch het bewijs dat je wel het verschil kan maken.
Je moet ergens beginnen. Je moet niet nadenken. Je moet gewoon beginnen. Iedereen kan gewoon zijn eigen Tony zijn. Dat is natuurlijk ook het verhaal van deze reep.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with the wise words from a French guy called Jean-Paul Sartre, who once said, once you know something, you cannot unknow something. And once you know something and you're aware, you're responsible. And when you're responsible, it's upon you to act upon that responsibility. So the very next time you find yourself in a supermarket, in front of that chocolate shelf, or any shelf for that matter, realize that each and every purchase you make, each and every decision you make, each and every business decision you make is a vote for the world you want to live in yourself. Thank you very much. So, yes, here we are back again. Thank you very much for watching that over the last 20 minutes or so. Any questions you have, please start dropping them into the chat box of YouTube, and I'll start to pick up a couple of them already. Let me actually start with the last one I'm seeing right now, and then I'll scroll back up again. But obviously in these times, very relevant. So Jess asks, what is the impact of COVID on your current supply chain, and how is it impacting your farmers? A very good question indeed. So first of all, a couple of weeks ago, as a company, we obviously all started working from home, and as far as I know, up till now, no one within the company has been affected. But much more importantly, indeed, the part of your question is, how is it affecting the farmers and the cooperatives we work with? There's a bit of lag between the time that the virus actually entered the countries, and we're a bit ahead in Europe. So we had a bit of time to ramp up for Ghana and Ivory Coast, where unfortunately it has not only already started spreading in the cities, but also outside of the cities. We're in daily contact with the cooperatives we work with, and we're supporting them at the moment already with, I don't know how to say this, sanitization, so to help them wash their hands, soap and water, and most of all an awareness campaign about the virus, posters in the villages about washing their hands, etc. But we're in constant contact about what we can do further down the line. We're also seeing at how we can speed up the payment of the premium that we pay to the farmers, so they get that premium earlier on, so they have financial means also to help themselves at this moment. So that is on COVID. Let me then scroll back up again to a couple of questions. Josh asks, are we likely to see a decrease in the positive step forwards that the industry has been taking? I'm sure companies will be looking to cut costs to try and improve their performance off the back of COVID. Can't really comment on that entirely yet, because we don't know where this is going yet. But obviously, yes, this could be a fear, and this could be abused by companies. I think overall we still need to really all work together to really make that change within the industry, and let's all keep a keen eye out on whether companies would use this as an excuse. I don't think they need to. I think profits made in the past should be enough for specifically these companies to survive at these times. So, but let's all keep a keen eye out on that if that would happen. But a very good point indeed. Let's see, Sam's questions on glutens and cow's milk has been answered by my team on the back end already, I think. If not, get back to us. Isha09 or Iska09 is asking, is Tony's going into chocolate biscuits and other chocolate related products? Well, at Tony's never say never, honestly. But I think on a more serious note, well, we've used biscuits in our chocolate, not the other way around. But honestly, I think a lot of our success comes from our focus on the chocolate bars. So we actually, in a nutshell, only have 3 products: the big bars, the smaller bars, and the tiny Tonys that you have next to your coffee or your tea. And within those products, we obviously have different tastes and recipes and packaging. But I think a lot of our success actually comes from our focus on just chocolate. So I think it's a lot of our success comes from not jumping onto opportunities, but actually not grabbing those opportunities and staying focused on what we're doing. So for now, I would say no, but never say never at Tony's. Do the children in the cooperatives now have some kind of family life with parents? I mean, yeah, well, yes, definitely. There's many families, and fortunately, the problem of forced child labor and child slavery is a worst scenario, worst thing you see in the industry. And yes, it's widespread, but you also have a very obviously very normal family life over there as well, I would say. Christopher asks, would Tony's ever consider a sugar-free bar? Again, Christopher, never say never. This might be in the pipeline, but there's nothing I can say about it. But would we consider it? Definitely. So Moira asks, how do you guys view the Cocoa Life program launched by Mondelez? Let me give a more generic question, just drilling down on Cocoa Life or Mondelez as a brand or their initiatives. We applaud any initiative by any chocolate producer that wants to improve the livelihoods of the farmers in Western Africa and across the globe, honestly. But at the same time, it's also our role to keep a sharp eye on whether that is actually concretely improving the lives of the farmers in Western Africa. So we see a lot of programs that are good, but definitely aren't enough. So there's not enough positive change happening on the ground in Ivory Coast and Ghana. So that is why we are actually really putting more pressure on governments, on other organizations, to really make organizations take responsibility for their full value chain and to make sure that there's no violations of human rights in their value chain. So yes, programs are great, but are they enough? Definitely not enough yet. But let's all work together with all companies, with retailers, with chocolate consumers, and with the farmers to make sure that we work towards 100% slave-free chocolate. Because we can only reach this thing together. So we can dive into positive and negative sides of programs that there are. On a general level, they're good, but they're not enough. Okay, let's see. Zolt asks, is COVID set to increase the price of cocoa and therefore the price of chocolate products on the shelves? It's too early to tell yet. On a different note, on a historical note, a couple of years ago, cocoa prices plummeted for several reasons, and we didn't see any decrease of the chocolate price on shelf. So we asked the industry, where has that money gone, right? It's obviously gone into pockets of someone, not the farmers. So in this case, you could say if it does anything to the price, let's keep a keen eye out on that. Let's make sure we all pay a fair price for the cocoa beans that we source from these farmers, whatever happens due to COVID. So earlier on, I don't know where it is now, but I saw a question about Brazil. I've quickly sent a text to my colleague Ivan, who's responsible for the overseas markets, because I don't know the plans for Brazil yet. Maybe I know that Mika, my team member in the back end, also has dropped a WhatsApp to Ivan. Maybe he knows this already. He can put it in the chat. I'm not sure about Brazil, but trust me, someday we'll be conquering the whole galaxy. Question here, do you have an academy training your employees about the mission of Tony's and more precisely integrating knowledges about the chocolate production and chain? What kind of profile do you need? Definitely, we have a couple of things there. We have the Show Academy, which is an annual 2-day outing that we have with the whole company where we talk about developments, where we talk about the cocoa industry, we talk about our values, we talk about our team, and also in our whole onboarding process, which we call our typical Tony's time. We really do a deep dive with every new Tony into the chocolate industry, into the cocoa industry, about everything that there's to know. And honestly, for consumers, our annual report is downloadable on our website. That is like one complete, transparent, open book on where we're at, what the developments in the cocoa industry is, what has gone right with Tony's, what has gone wrong with Tony's, And I'm sure I saw the link already being dropped in the chat by Mika. Maybe he can put it in one more time for you guys to download our annual report. You can get it hard copy. You can download the digital version and have a look there. John asks, how strong is the sales performance in the UK? Let me put it in short. It's been amazing, and it's exceeded all of our expectations. Only in the first year it was more than triple what we expected it would be in the UK. So it's great to see that our brand and most of all our mission is so widely embraced in the UK and more across the globe, but definitely in the UK as well. So it's exceeded all of our expectations there, honestly. And then a follow-up question is Paul's, what has been your most successful activation? I think at the moment there's two very successful ones. One we did in London with a free. We showed that there's no such thing as free chocolate, and we showed a short movie and a whole experience about what is happening in the cocoa industry. Obviously followed up by an abundance of chocolate for people to taste. That was a really successful experience, so successful in London that we repeated it in Scandinavia. Another one we're doing in the US at the moment is that we're traveling around with a converted old truck, and the truck itself is an experience that you can go through and see everything about the cocoa industry, and you also have a tasting experience, and it's so successful that we've done multiple trips through the US. We've put it on hold at the moment though, unfortunately, through the whole US where people can really experience the chocolate, but also mostly the story behind it. Okay, what else? Let me see. Alice asks, Cadbury has a Fairtrade logo on its packaging. Does that mean there's no child slavery involved with Cadbury? It's a very good question there, and Alice, I would tend to say no. That is not a guarantee. And if you watch our documentary of the early days of Tony's, we ourselves realized that a fair trade certification isn't enough to really ensure that it's completely child slavery free. But watch the whole documentary. But in short, it comes down to the fact that it's such a widespread problem in the industry that even us up to today, we're not saying we're 100% slave free anywhere in our packaging. We're saying we can work towards that point together. And it's very good to understand why that is, because first of all, we want to run into incidents because we know that they are there. So if we run into them and we can find them, we can help these farmers remediate them. So that's why we work with a system that's called the CLMRS, so the Child Labor Monitoring and Remediation System. We actually go around, we interview farmers, we interview kids that we see, and we log these things and we see how we can remediate the problems that they might have. Because technically, I could grow a couple of cocoa beans in my backyard, make chocolate out of that, and then say I'm 100% slave free. But that wouldn't change anything in the industry. That wouldn't change anything in Ghana and Ivory Coast. So that is why we're working together with the rest of the industry to make all chocolate 100% slave free. That's so much more important for us than just making our own chocolate 100% slave free. But in our annual report, you can see that over the last 2 years, we didn't run into any incidents of modern slavery at the cooperatives that we work with. And still we don't say this out loud because we always say there might still be an incident somewhere that we simply couldn't find. So you won't hear us say it. For us, it's much more important to inspire everybody else that together we can change that industry. So that brand that you mentioned, no, I don't think they can say that. They don't probably themselves. Okay, so Julie asks, is the Tony's store still open in Amsterdam? Unfortunately, no. So both stores, we have one store in the historic heart of Amsterdam, and we have one store in our office that's slightly on the outskirts of the center of Amsterdam. Both have been closed completely at the moment, as are our offices. No, the stores are closed. Hopefully they'll open soon again, but at the moment they're closed. So I saw a couple of mentions on fair trade left and right. Let me put something straight there. Our bars are fair trade certified. At least all the ingredients where it's useful, all our ingredients are fair trade certified where useful and where necessary. We think fair trade certification is great. It is though not an end point, as some companies see it. For us, it's the starting point. So I often describe it as it's like getting your driver's license, right? You're allowed to go on the road, but you're not a proper driver yet. So I think people shouldn't see certifications as an end point and end for all. It's a great starting point, and from there you can still improve, because what we noticed, as I said earlier on, that just a Fairtrade certification isn't a guarantee that there's no child labor in your bars. You can dive into that deeper by watching our documentary. Do also watch the television, so on Netflix, the documentary Rotten, where in the second season there's a great episode about bitter chocolate, and dive into our annual report that covers that much more. If lots of retailers and or brands wanted to use the open chain, how would you scale out the increased volumes needed? That's a very good point. At the moment, it would be doable within the value chain that we have now, so we can increase within our value chain. There's many more cooperatives that we can work with Ghana and Ivory Coast. In the end, though, the end station is that every farmer gets fairly paid and gets a living income reference price for their beans. So this is something that we all need to work on. Everybody within their own value chains can improve this. The Tony's Open Chain platform is really for everybody to join hands and see whether we can actually make this happen together. So is it doable? Probably not overnight, John, but yes, we can work together to make it happen. Julie asks, we loved seeing the alphabet letter bars on a trip to Amsterdam late last year. Might they be coming to the UK before a competitor copies the alphabet bars? That is something that's intertwined with our Sinterklaas thing. So it's like a Dutch comparison to Santa Claus, where we always have these letter bars. I don't know what the plans for the UK is, but I'll let my UK team know that it might be a good idea to roll those out in the UK as well. Maybe start with a couple of them and then have the whole alphabet like we have them in Holland. So it's always great to have a very long first name and surname when your birthday is in December, because then you can treat it with the whole friggin' alphabet there. So that's a good one for the UK team. What else do we have, guys? Is the documentary Melissa asks, is the documentary available to view online? It is. I would like all of you to become a serious friend of Tony's. It's a quick link on our website to become a serious friend. I'd love you to sign the petition that we've launched, that I talked about in the presentation slightly. And if you become a serious friend, in the back end of the serious friend part, you can click on the documentary and watch the documentary directly from there. So you can stream it from there. Yes, so I saw my colleague said you can watch it on Amazon Prime. I would prefer you become a serious friend and watch it through our own back end, honestly, though. What else, guys? Do we have questions? Okay, I had a question earlier on through somebody, a serious friend of ours, who wasn't able to watch the online talk just now, but I got it through a different chat. The question was, if you could create a national day to celebrate Tony's Chocolonely, what would be the date and reason to celebrate? Oei. I would love to hold back on that one and create a day, perhaps call it Impact Day or something, where we actually managed to make sure that 100% slave-free chocolate became the norm in chocolate. That would be a great day to celebrate together for us to reach our mission. I probably wouldn't be so presumptuous to call it the Tony's Chocolate Day, but maybe we should call it Impact Day. And probably we would need to put it somewhere at the end of the year or something, because that is the most obviously the nicest period to eat chocolate when you're locked up in your homes with rainy days outside. Next question was, if you could make your ultimate Tony's chocolate bar, nothing of the cards, what would it involve? I gotta tell you, I have don't have the best track record internally within Tony's there, because I was convinced. I don't know whether you know what a mango banana lassi is, but I think it's more known in the UK than in Holland. But you drink it in Asia. I think it's an Indian drink. It's like yogurt with banana and mango. And I can live off that thing. It's like a milkshake of yogurt, banana and mango. And I figured when I in my early days at Tony's, I thought if you put that in a chocolate bar, you probably have the most amazing chocolate bar ever. We tried it with freeze-dried mango, freeze-dried banana. It didn't work. So I don't think my suggestion for the ultimate Tony's bar would be there, because I also once suggested, why don't we put a vegan Big Mac and a pizza freeze-dried in a bar, because then you're covered for everything that's great in the world. And I don't think that was a great idea either. So I don't think you need to depend on me for great ideas. Then let me go back to a question here. Jess asked, why did you choose Barry Callebaut, so Callebaut as we say in Dutch, or Callebaut, to produce for you? It's an interesting thing. You can see in our early days, we obviously, as the journalist Teun van der Keuken went to Callebaut and to confront them with the facts of how come this isn't traceable, etc. And we weren't even welcome to talk to them. Now, Callebaut and us, we're the most important of partners, I would say, or Callebaut one of our most important partners to make this happen. So, but why work with Callebaut? We always say, well, if we can make the biggest chocolate producer in the world, which Callebaut is, change their ways, then we can make it happen anywhere. So this is a very important reason for us to work with Callebaut, because through them we can actually reach great changes. I hope that answers your question there on Callebaut. And Tony asks, is Tony's donating any of its fine chocolate to hospitals as a treat for care workers? Yes, we've done over the last few weeks. We've sent chocolate to care workers all over the Netherlands and abroad. We simply didn't communicate about it because we didn't think that was appropriate. I think we thought it was unnecessary to communicate about it, but we've done it simply because we believe they're doing an amazing job, and we all need them, and it shows how very important these people are, and perhaps how undervalued they've been over the last few years. So a bit of support through chocolate that we could give them. Glenn asks, love your work and your chocolate. Question, failure is the best way to learn, so what's the biggest failure Tony's have experienced? Glenn, I don't know. I think it was Churchill who once said, success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And I think that is the power of Tony's, that we are so enthusiastic about what we do, we're so passionate about the purpose that we're pursuing, that obviously we run into failures constantly. I mean, it's a fast-growing business, and whether it's recipes for bars that we thought would be amazing and that just didn't work, or I don't know, certain stores or certain packaging, but there's failures everywhere, obviously, and it's not about the failure, it's about how quickly you can recuperate from it and how much a failure is accepted within your company. So we always say we thrive on failures as long as you make them only once. Let's learn from our failures constantly and also celebrate our failures. So John asks, so when are we going to see some more fantastic flavors and combinations in the UK? I think that's one for my UK team on the back end to answer in the chat. I would say constantly. I don't know exactly what flavors we have in the UK now, but I believe it's 6 or 7 at the moment. And yes, obviously, as we're growing in the UK, you'll see many more of our flavors hit the shelves there as well. So Andy asks, understand on the global scale is the child labor struggle similar in scale to that of the coffee industry? Andy, I'm not sure what the exact figures in the coffee industry are at the moment. I know in chocolate, we know that in just Ghana and Ivory Coast alone, there's 2.3 million children that work there, of which 90% work under illegal circumstances. So that's just 2.1 million in itself, and 30,000 that actually work in those conditions that we call modern slavery. I'm not sure what the figures in coffee are, so it's not to me to be able to compare that at this moment, sorry. Okay, let me take one. Somebody asked in the different chat, do you have a favorite little known fact about Tony's or chocolate in general? Okay, I could name any funny one, but we tend to say what happens at Tony's stays in Tony's, but those are mostly for the ski trips that we have together. But unfortunately, on a more serious note, a very little known fact until today, even though it's becoming more transparent through awareness also around this issue, is the issue of forced child labor. So the issue of these forms of modern slavery in chocolate, unfortunately, on many places in the world is still very unknown. And this is something we need to work on together. And we're relying on you guys as serious friends of Tony's to really spread this story as well and make people, for me, it's not about selling more Tony's bars. For me, it's about becoming aware of what you can do as a consumer when it comes down to any purchase you make, right? It's a responsibility we all have. We don't just vote every 4 years when we go to the voting booths. You can vote every single day with your shopping basket. Let's see, diving back to this one again. Okay, so I saw the UK team already answering that one. Okay, guys. Okay, Mika my colleague posted a question that was posted earlier on. Before we started the presentation, there was one question already. There was, what is the age range of the children compelled to be involved in this industry? And as I then said in the chat, but it was an important question, so we're repeating it here. Unfortunately, it's from very early ages already that you see. So this is across all ages, and the figures of forced and unpaid labor is from the ages of 4, 5, 6 years old, unfortunately. And there's differing definitions, also legalities surrounding where the switch is between child labor and child work, honestly, and there's a deep dive of that in our annual report as well. So it differs per country. Say it's from, unfortunately, very early ages already. Let's see if I can. Okay, I dive. There's one more just came in. This is a tough one. Luke asks me, for Tony's, is creating change all or nothing, or is it better to promote incremental change in the industry, i.e. improving the baseline? Luke, I have to give you a very diplomatic answer now, unfortunately. I think it's both. I think it's all or nothing in terms of reaching our mission. I think 100% slave-free chocolate should simply be the norm in the industry. There should not be any form of forced child labor in producing a good that's a luxury item like chocolate for us, right? I mean, it just shouldn't be there. But we can only get there step by step with everybody. So everybody needs to take their responsibility. It's from farmers, consumers, retailers, governments, etc., etc. It's all of us taking our responsibility. So that is incremental, but the end goal in itself, the vision, is all or nothing, in my opinion. Then Nick Perry asks, how far does the development of each recipe and sourcing of all raw ingredients go before you hand over the product for mass production to Barry Callebaut? That is obviously a long process. So I think the bars that Eva and Bas are now developing in the kitchen, they take about a year or 1.5 years to actually go into production. So there's a whole new product development team, which is a cross-team thingy where people talk also about the cost of the bars. Obviously, they should be doable. Then they need to be tested, etc., etc. So there's a lengthy process. And before you ask, we unfortunately don't have a tasting panel. The tasting panel we have is ourselves. So we sometimes get this message, guys, there's a couple of new bars in the kitchen, come out and test them. But again, what happens at Tony's stays in Tony's. So I can't tell you anything about that one. Moira then asked, do you hope or think that the disruption Tony's is causing in the chocolate industry could be possible in other industries, e.g. coffee, rice, cotton, etc.? Yes. Definitely more, and I hope to inspire, or we hope to inspire, many more companies just outside of just the chocolate industry, obviously as well. Because everybody that, I think any organization and any company needs to take responsibility for their full value chain, whether that's chocolate or a different branch, right? So yes, hopefully not just us, but companies like ours and other B Corps, for example, can really inspire other companies to take their responsibility. It's not about annoying the hell out of them to do that. It's really about inspiring them to show them that you can be a viable business and still do just something good for society and the planet around them. Okay. John Young says he's happy to be an external member of your tasting panel. And so, John, you have to come by the office someday. Maybe we have a secret bar for you to test over at our office. Okay, guys, let's wrap up. I want to thank all of you very... hold on. One question came in that might be very... yes, this is a very good question, and then I'll wrap up. So I'll take this one as the last one. Any other question you might have, put them in our, not just in our chat, but on our social media channels for our team to answer, because I wonder whether this chat actually stays alive when this talk is over. So then put them in our Insta or Facebook or LinkedIn, wherever you want to ask the question. But Luke is asking, are Tony's looking at creating more value in the source countries, so processing manufacturing countries? This is a very good question. So what we're doing with our cocoa butter is that we're producing that in Abidjan at the moment, in Ivory Coast. That diminishes the CO2 footprint of shipping the cocoa beans for the cocoa butter part that we produce. And it also means that there's 2 crops of cocoa beans every year. And normally you can only export one of them. The other one is used locally. It is a lesser quality crop to make chocolate out of, but you can make perfect cocoa butter out of it. So we also source that crop from the farmers and make cocoa butter out of it, and we can use it locally. We make the cocoa butter locally and then ship that. So yes, we do that. But before you would ask, can you also produce chocolate locally? Obviously, it is possible, but if we were to produce our chocolate locally, our CO2 emission would go through the roof, because then you would have to do it in a chilled environment. You would have to ship the chocolate also in a chilled environment all the way to Western Europe and the US. Whilst now we can ship the cocoa beans and the cocoa butter in an ambient situation, which is in the end result more sustainable, and also an economic result. If we were to produce locally, we wouldn't create more jobs than about 100. They would probably be in a customs zone as well, so it wouldn't be the local economy benefiting of this. But we're constantly looking at how can we bring more benefit to the beginning of the value chain. In this case, for us, it's about paying a fair price to the farmers in the beginning of the value chain. So, very great question. Look, guys, any question you might have, put them on our socials. But for now, I'm wrapping up. I want to thank all of you, mostly from the UK at the moment, I think, that have been online with this live talk. I want to wish you the best of health. I want to ask of you to make sure you and your family, but not just you and your family, also the people around you are happy and healthy. Take good care of each other. Give each other slightly more love than you would do in normal times. And let's hopefully keep that love level up after this Corona crisis. I wish all of you at home the best, and thank you very much for having been here. And if you haven't done so yet, please become serious friend of Tony's and sign our petition. Thank you very much, guys.